What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the show. So for the last few months, I've been talking about Alaska and why Alaska is very important for Democrats to win if they want to take back control of the Senate. But I haven't shown you any of the latest polling. Today we have some polling that was posted a few days ago, so we're going to take a look at that polling, and then we're going to go over to the Senate map, and I'm going to show you, when it comes to Alaska, I consider Alaska leaning for Democrats, and I think Democrats have a real shot of winning in Alaska. And we have 3 states that are in that pathway for Democrats to take back control of the Senate. And so if they can win in these 3 states and then flip one more state, they can take back control of the Senate. I'll explain all of that when we take a look at the Senate map. But first, I want to take a look at what's going on in Alaska. So that's what we're going to focus on in this video. But first off, if you guys can do me a favor, please like the video. And if you're watching this video and you want to see more content like this, please consider subscribing to the channel. So let's go ahead and get right into it. The first thing that we're going to take a look at is we're going to take a look at some of the polling. Now, this is coming from 270 to win. And at the top here, we have the Alaska survey. So you see that's the poll. And we see that it was conducted on 4/23/2026. You have 1,946 likely voters. Margin of error is 2.5%. And so that is what we have right now. And you guys know how I feel when it comes to likely voters. These are people who voted in recent elections. I think it's very important to look at likely voters. Sometimes they'll do a poll and they'll show registered voters. Registered voters are okay, but you could be registered to vote, but haven't voted in the last 10 years or the last 15 years. So just because you're registered to vote doesn't mean that you participate. They also do polls where they'll have just adults. So they're just polling adults. Those people might not even be registered to vote. Those people might not have ever voted. So when we're talking about likely voters, usually the metric that they use is these people have voted in recent elections, and that's very important. Okay, so looking at this poll here, it's showing us that Peltola is at 49%, Heel is at 3%, Ryan is at 5%, and Sullivan is the incumbent. He's the incumbent Republican. He's at 43%, and then other is 0%. So you see Peltola is leading in the latest poll. Okay, and this was conducted on 4/23. And so this is the latest information that we have. Now, when we take a look at some of the recent polls, and when I say recent, I mean some of these polls, this goes back. Let's start at the bottom, and then we'll work our way up. So this Data for Progress poll, this was conducted on 8/8/2025. Okay, so last year, 678 likely voters. Margin of error there is plus or minus 4%. Peltola at 45, Sullivan at 46, other at 9%. Now, what's interesting about this poll is this was conducted before Peltola decided that she was going to run. She didn't decide that she was going to run until January. And so this polling way back then was showing that Peltola was at 45%, and she hadn't even announced that she was going to be running. And Sullivan was at 46. So you see, Sullivan even had a problem back then. And so now let's take a look at the Alaska survey research. This was conducted on October 21st, 2025. 1,908 likely voters. Margin of error plus or minus 2.5%. Peltola at 48. Sullivan at 46. Other at 6%. Peltola was polling higher than Sullivan before she even announced. This was back in October of last year. Okay, looking at the Alaska Research Survey here, and this was conducted on January 13th, 2026. I believe this was after she announced that she was running. And the sample size there is 1,988 registered voters, plus or minus 2.2%. Peltola at 48%. Sullivan at 46%, other at 6%. So this is at or around the time that Peltola decided that she was going to run. Okay, I can't remember the exact date that she announced that she was running, but I know it was around that time. And so you see polling showing Peltola ahead of Sullivan. Okay, basically it's the same polling that we saw back in October, we saw in January. And then fast forward to the same pollster here, the Alaska Survey Research, and now it's showing Peltola at 49% and Sullivan at 43%. And so you see Peltola is consistently showing in the polling, she's consistently showing that she's in the lead. Now, when we take a look at our Senate map, the reason why we're talking about Alaska, the reason why Alaska is very important for Democrats is because if Democrats can win in Alaska, this will set them up. This is a good pathway for them to take back control of the Senate. And so let me just show you where we currently are. So we have Democrats and independents at 47. You have Republicans at 53. So Democrats need to get to 51 seats in order to take back control of the Senate. And so right now, looking at some of the latest polling, Democrats' best pickup is going to be in North Carolina. Roy Cooper has a real shot of winning, and you're looking at the latest polling with Roy Cooper. He does have the lead in all of the latest polling that we've seen. When it comes to Maine, I think Democrats have a shot. You have Plattner, you have Mills. They're both Democrats running against each other in the primary. But from there, if Plattner does win, I think Plattner has a better shot of beating Collins, but we'll just have to see. Even Mills is running neck and neck with Collins. That's problematic for Collins because Collins is the incumbent. And so if you have a candidate running neck and neck with you and you're the incumbent, that shows that your constituents in your state, they don't really like what you're doing. They don't really approve of what you're doing. And that is why you're running neck and neck with someone who is not an incumbent. And so let's say the Democrat wins in Maine. And so now we're looking at Democrats and independents at 49, Republicans at 51, and then we go down to Alaska. Looking at the polling that we just went over, you see that Peltola does have an advantage. That doesn't guarantee that she's going to win. They do have ranked choice voting, so that's something else. That's another little wrinkle in this. But let's say Peltola is able to win. Now we're looking at Democrats and independents at 50, Republicans at 50. The tie goes to the vice president. The vice president's a Republican, obviously. And so Republicans would still maintain control of the Senate. And so Democrats would need to win one more state. And that's when we're looking at this map. If Democrats are able to win in Alaska, if they're able to win in North Carolina, if they're able to win in Maine, which I think all three of these states are states that Democrats could win in. They could flip these states. If we see that, now we need to see one more state. And that's where you start to talk about Texas. That's where you start to talk about Iowa. That's where you start to talk about Ohio. These are states Democrats have the potential to win in. And so at this point, all they would need to do is win one more state. I think their best opportunity, I've said this over and over again, and I'll continue to say this as long as the polling is supporting this, I think their best opportunity is in Ohio. If Sherrod Brown can win in Ohio, which Sherrod Brown has won in Ohio before, then that would be what Democrats need to take back control of the Senate. Now, I say Ohio, but Democrats can also win in Iowa. We looked at some of the polling in Iowa. It's showing that the Democrat is neck and neck with Henson, with the Republican. And remember, this is an open seat in Iowa, so that's going to be interesting. This will be the first time these candidates are trying to win a Senate seat in Iowa. And so that's possible. We have Tallarico. There's some late polling coming out showing Tallarico is ahead of both Cornyn and Paxton. And so that's another state that Democrats can win. And so right now, when we start to look at these different pathways, we're seeing that Democrats have an opportunity because some of these states are much closer than we anticipated them being. 6 months ago, we weren't even talking about some of these different states. We weren't talking about Alaska. Why weren't we talking about Alaska? Because Peltola wasn't running at that point. We weren't talking about some of these other states. When it comes to Texas, we weren't really talking about Texas. But now we're talking about Texas because the race is tightening. We're seeing that Tallarico is popular. People like Tallarico in Texas. We weren't even really talking about Ohio because the polling was still showing that Houston had an advantage over Sherrod Brown. But now Sherrod Brown and Houston, they're pretty much running neck and neck. And so when we're looking at this map, we see that Democrats do have a clear pathway. Now, one thing that I should mention, Democrats need to hold 3 seats. Okay, they need to hold Georgia. Very important. If they lose in Georgia, this is going to mess up their pathway. So Ossoff needs to win in Georgia. We have an open seat in Michigan. And so we have to see how Democrats are going to do in Michigan because Democrats need to win Michigan. If they lose Michigan, it will mess up their pathway. New Hampshire, it's another state. And when we're looking at the latest polling, Papas, who's a Democrat, and Sununu, who's a Republican, they're very close in polling. And so this race could go either way, but Democrats need to win in New Hampshire. And so Democrats need to hold those 3 states, and then they need to net 4 states. Now, I did show you on the map their pathway, how they can do this. And when we're talking about this, I'm just showing you how Democrats can get to 51. Democrats can go even higher than 51. We don't know. So Democrats can win in Texas, they can win in Ohio, and they can win in Iowa. But I'm just showing you what they need, the pathway just to get to the majority. And so that's what I'm focused on right now. I just want to show you that pathway, how Democrats can get to the majority. So if you guys have any questions, let me know down below. But now I want to pass it off to you. Do you think Peltola has a really good shot of winning in Alaska? Let me know in the comments below, especially if you live in Alaska. Let me know what the climate is out there right now when it comes to Peltola and Sullivan. If you guys like this video, please give me a thumbs up. Please subscribe for more. And remember, stay informed, stay engaged, and I'll talk to you in the next one. Bye. So that's all we have for this video. Make sure if you guys want to send me an email, you can do that, david@thetecshow.com. Like the video, subscribe for more, and check out these videos over here for some more great content. Talk to you later. Bye.